Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC, to Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel here for Chaos Corner. It's me. It's me. It's the GOC coming to you live to tape 25 feet below the surface of the earth for another episodic YouTube adventure and story time. I can't thank you guys and gals enough for being here. It's a temporary distraction, a much needed stress reliever in these hard times that we're living in. And I don't have to get into that. That's another story, another show for another time. Drop an elbow. I rake. I poke that like button. Leave a comment. Share. Subscribe. Say something, man. Shout out to my mods, the OTS Tribal Queen, and my brother from another mother, Austin Nance. I want to acknowledge all the guys that have been popping in and out. Not only do they follow my channel, I follow their channel as well here in this space of the IWC. That's my brother, my fellow moderator, the Hooligan. That's right, Hooligan. And of course, Big O Gaming, my brother Otis. And then there's Funny Rob Bebe, who is now Hoodie Rob Bebe. There's also the Scripps Wrestling Federation, Midmo Smark, Kratos, Future, and of course, the Rick Del Santo Show. Go out and watch and subscribe to all these channels. And then there's my brothers over at the Wrestling Council Hollywood and Comic Book Bob, along with their co-host, Here's Johnny. You have to go out and support the smaller independent podcasts on this space, because this personally isn't a podcast. This is the fucking show. So keep that in mind. Greetings and salutations to everyone out there, and let's keep it rolling. It's WrestleMania week. There's a lot going on this week, so let's see what happens. Sit back and enjoy. Follow me over on X, aka Twitter, at Big Daddy GOC. Also here on a community to post page, I cover all the live PLEs and pay-per-views for AEW and the WWE. So I am up with the current product, although I am the OG. Let's jump right into it. Much love and respect. As I always say, and I'm going to say this again, stay mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually fit. If he's for us, no one else can be against us. I'd like to acknowledge and recognize my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Let's get into it here, pro wrestling fans. No matter what era you're from, I just have some nice impromptu stories here on Storytime, as this station is. Very much spur of the moment and impromptu. Nothing's planned here. Take out your notebooks. And I know one thing for sure, you'll be better off when you walk out of here than when you walked in here. So you could hold an actual fucking conversation at your next venue, your next holiday gathering, your next picnic or a barbecue, or at the water cooler at work, or when you go to a restaurant, a pub or tavern. I don't know where it is that you hang out. How do I know? And I'll say it one more time and we'll move on. Because I repeat and repeat and repeat, and that's what I do. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. I can't say that enough. The who's who and what's that of today's pro wrestling as we go back in the time machine here on Chaos Corner, circa 1999, over 25 years ago. Again, as I said, take out your notebooks. I will be taking attendance, and we'll start now. I named all the guys and gals out there. Bueller. Bueller? Anyone? Many of today's new wrestling fans have only a passing recognition of some of the greatest performers, past and present, who've stood out larger than life, like the carvings on Mount Rushmore. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. How about that? Wrestling's recent explosive growth, however, was built on these stars' body slams by body slam, toehold by hammerlock over the past 2 decades. And even when the fans do know some of the great competitors by name, they have little awareness of their many accomplishments. In this story time, I'm going to try to remember and remedy that situation. And in this chapter, we'll just keep at that job. Learn here about wrestling's good guys and bad guys. You come here to learn facts, as I already said. Not opinions, not conclusions, not theories. Learn about wrestling's good guys and bad guys, the beauties and the beasts. In short, learn the hitherto. I'm as confused as a baby at Hooters, man. Unknown stories of wrestling's storied modern legends, and it's legends in the making. And while you're reading along with me, cheer them on, because the cheering of the fans is what wrestling's all about. And if you go back and view the over 5,000 videos here on this channel, you'll see, go to the Classics channel here on the page, on the channel, and you'll see some unbelievable bouts, men and women. History. You'll see at least half of my career here on the channel. There's a lot of lost tapes. There's a lot of tapes I haven't posted yet, but we will be. My over 30 years as a pro wrestling manager, managing over 30 Hall of Famers all over this country. The biggest, baddest, loudest, most dangerous manager in the independent pro wrestling scene, who worked with the likes of the Bushwhackers and Yokozuna and Rikishi and Umaga. I can go on and on. You want me to continue to list them? Terry Funk, Mick Foley, Jerry the King Lawler, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Do you want me to go on? Tommy Dreamer, Just Incredible, The Sandman. I mean, it's a who's who from every company and every organization. John Diamond, Tony DeVito, the Giant Primo Carnera, Roughhouse Ralph Mosca. The list goes on and on and on. Salvatore Sincere, Pat Tanaka, Chris Candido, Public Enemy, The Iron Sheik, bodyguarder for John Cena, Matt Hardy. Was on the same event with the likes of The Rock, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Abyss, Christian Cage, Kevin Nash. I can't even name them all. I'm going to sit down. Guys like Low Key, Xavier, Homicide 187, LA Smooth, a.k.a. Lloyd Anawai, Big Sam, Afa, took over as commissioner for Bruno Sammartino, and then went on to be the longest running commissioner in all of pro wrestling history for the NAWA, the North American Wrestling Alliance, for over 20 years. I believe that record stands today. Plus, not to mention all the young rookies and stars right now that are in this business. I could still go back to the legends. We could sit here and talk about Bob Backlund, Balls Mahoney. Who knew those two would be in the same group? The list goes on and on. I'll have to research it. And then, of course, today's stars. Dustin Flash Waller, Kylon King, the Duke Boys, Algo Nelly, Jeremy Lacroix, Swipe Right, Brad Baylor, Richard Holiday, the most marketable man in pro wrestling. Breathe it in, because that's rarefied air. The former tag team partners in MLW Dynasty with Alexander Hammerstone, MJF, and Richard Holiday, the earpod god, if you will. So I want you to think about that. And of course, the Paradise 4 at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling opened and running shows since 2015 on our 10-year anniversary right now. Owners and head trainers. He was in the Four Horsemen, Power and Glory, Young Stallions, Pretty Wonderful, been on WrestleMania, performed at Madison Square Garden, and that would be one, our head trainer, Pretty Paul Roma. And then there's the owner of the Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, who was in the WWF as the youngest grappler at that time from 84 to 92. And that would be the one and only Mario Mancini. And of course, there's the second generation grappler, cousin to Roberto Soto. Both his parents were luchadors. He actually trained in the basement of his house. One of our co-trainers, Mr. Paul Perez. And then there's the silent partner, former WWF grappler himself, owner of the Rib House and Ribs to Go here in the Constitution State, in the greater New England tri-state Northeast area, on the outskirts of Quinnipiac University. And that would be the big man at 6'5", almost 6'6", and 380 pounds. Big Steve Tracy, a.k.a. Big Dave Paradise. That's the Paradise 4. That's the company I work for. That's the company I still do play-by-play for, color commentary, whether it be with Matt DeCourt, the enforcer Kevin Sabin, or the unbelievable future of this business, whether it's the Westchester Knicks, the Bridgeport Islanders, Quinnipiac University itself, baseball, football, hockey, pro wrestling, and that would be Double T talking Tommy Sabin, the future of this business. So those are the luminaries and the people that I'm in touch with and currently what's going on. And just think about Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Not only has Scout second-hand man to Triple H, who currently runs Evolve for the WWE, Gabe Sapolsky, WWE Scout, damn near creator and owner of Ring of Honor, Evolve Wrestling itself, so on and so forth, and one damn good guy, comes down to our facility. And at our facility, not only do you be able to get your pro wrestling training in from credibility, from men that were in the WWF, who worked for Vince McMahon, who worked for WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions. It doesn't get better than that. Not only do you get to train there Monday night classes, Tuesday night classes, Wednesday night classes, Saturday afternoon classes. You start off with Mario Mancini and his classes, and then you graduate on to Paul Roma. As I always say, Roma trained, Mancini brained. That's what you get at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. And they run their own live events. So once you graduate, you're performing in front of live crowds. There's not a lot of pro wrestling facilities, academies, schools that do what Paradise Alley does. And the stars that have walked through our locker room and performed at our shows, everyone from the recently injured and now coming back, fighter than ever, stronger than ever, Chris Bay, Darby Allin, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, Shane Swerve Strickland, Zack Sabre Jr., Sabu, Booker T, Deonna Purrazzo, Megan Bayne. The list goes on and on and on. A.R. Fox. All these different talent. Matthias DiNapoli. All these different stars, and especially the ones that you know from household names, have all performed under the banner of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, along with Ivelisse, Willie Mack, Ricky Reyes. I mean, I could just go on and on. Stars in this business that have performed for Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Teddy Goods, Jared Silberkleit. Now, Google, don't go Ghoulies, duck Ghoulies. Go to YouTube. Punch these names in on your computer that I'm talking about, from the Paradise Stars and Lions to the people I'm wrestling now, and you'll see who we're connected and associated with. And that's why you pick out credibility. You go somewhere where people know what they're talking about. They've been in the ring. They've taken the fucking bumps. You learn about storytelling, ring psychology, emotional investment. So I just wanted to shout out all my family and friends and people that I'm closely associated with. You know I mod for the #1 fucking podcast on YouTube, and that's JD and Off the Script. And of course with his co-hosts at time who have their own channels as well. Jason Solomon, the Solomonster. Heel Jesse, the Chi-Town Smark. I already said the Wrestling Council. Of course, the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle Show, the OGs of this space, of this community, of the IWC, all the way back to Wrestle Tracks and before to the Hotline. Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle, the OGs. And we know just recently, less than a week ago, or a little over a week ago, we lost the late, great Kevin Castle, who meant a lot to you fans out there. I personally got to know Kevin over these last handful of years, and he was a great guy to me, respectful, and knew the business and knew what he was talking about. So rest in peace, Kevin Castle. You're certainly going to be missed. And the Don Tony show just won't be the same. Just calling it like I see it and telling it like it is. Also go out and follow guys that are associated with Don Tony, and especially Kevin Castle, whether it be Dark Temptress, whether it be Baseball Chicky, whether it be the boys over at Wrestling Soup with the Mish, and of course, the legendary John Draper. Those are the fans. Those are the people. Those are the professionals. Those are the insiders. Those are the ones that are in this business, the leaders in this industry, if you will. I wanted to throw all that out here and pay my homages and respect. And if I missed you, I apologize because I have a lot going on here in the dome piece. Nostalgia just ain't what it used to be. So I want to present some content, acknowledge a lot of the people in the community and people that I have a personal connection to, and they've always helped me out, so I'm trying to help them out. We're no different. I may have been around the stars and talent and accomplished the things that I have, 25 years behind the walls with society's worst, the people that you're afraid of. Bounty hunter, private investigator, private bodyguard, security, you guys know it. Bouncer from pillar to post and coast to coast, up and down the East Coast. It's in the description. Read the bio. So I just want to update people here what's going on. We're still having huge issues with YouTube. That's for you, YouTube. Whether it be copyrights, took away my commercial ads, which was the only monetization I was getting on here. Took away the few members that I had. Didn't even violate anything. And then file an appeal, and you get persona non grata. And I haven't heard from them in months. And that's why you saw the appearances of the Midnight Rider on this channel. Go back several episodes and you'll see several episodes with the Midnight Rider in protest of what YouTube has done to this channel. Coming up on almost 3,000 subscribers, well over a total million views, 5,000 videos, over 500 personal shows of Chaos Corner, the show. And for as long as everybody's been around and been OGs, I started this journey in 1983. Went to pro wrestling school in 84. Got into the behind the wall scene in 1985 into 86. Made my debut as a pro wrestling manager. I still have to check. It's either 1990 or 1991. It took the fucking bumps. Paying for it today. Traveled all over this country on somebody else's dime as an indie old school manager a la Captain Lou Albano. Freddie Blassie, the Grand Wizard, Bobby Heenan, Gary Hart, Jim Cornette, Paul Ellering, J.J. Dillon, I already said, Sir Oliver Humperdinck. The list goes on of the character and managers and play-by-play guys and grapplers, talent, if you will, have all been molded into one. And because of my background of what I did throughout my career, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, who's now Medium Daddy. I went from 300, you got to be proud. I went from 335 pounds. I'd have to say I actually got down to 215, 212 at one time. I've leveled out at about 230. So still holding it down, keeping it real and maintaining as the over 50, over 60 demo god. At just about 6 feet, I definitely lost a couple inches and 230 pounds. Just think at one time, I was a legit 6'2" because of surgeries, my back, my knees. That's true. Look at Hogan, look at other people. Family and friends like to break your stones. But now about 6 feet, 230 when I was in my bio, legit bio, 6'2", 6'1.5", 6'2". I don't know what 73.5 inches is. I don't know. I mean, I failed math 3 times. I had to take non-credit twice in college. That's right, college, man, 5 years. The best 5 years of my life in the 80s. Early 80s, you know. It is what it is. So I wanted to give you a little background. Before I know I started off here with story time and talking about the who's who and what's that of today's pro wrestling, going back 25 years because I love history. Talking to you about cheering the fans and how important you guys are to this community, especially even here in 2025. But it's a different time, a different era. It's not really for me. I like a lot of the stars, but the stories and the shows and the moves and what happens in the ring, I can go without it. From wearing fucking jewelry to the different maneuvers to the no registering to the no selling. That's another story for another time. So again, leave a comment while you're here. Subscribe. Say something. Drop an elbow on that like button. It's an extravaganza, a bonanza, and I hope we can help out each other. Bob Backlund, clean cut, clearly tough. Say that 3 times fast. The 6'1", 235-pound Bob Backlund was much, much smaller when he was born in Princeton, Minnesota on August 14th, 1950. Red-headed and freckled, his open-faced charm has led to comparisons with Andy Griffith's boy, Opie, and less flatteringly as in his heel days as Howdy Doody. He started out in amateur wrestling, winning the championship, but it wasn't long before he was knocking on pro wrestling's door. He joined Vern Gagne's AWA lineup in 1974, where he built a reputation for a gimmick-free, purely scientific style. During the next couple of years, he wrestled for the NWA and then joined the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in 1977, where he was finally confronted, let me say that again, his destiny as a star. Now in 1977, let's see, I don't know, I'm a teenager, 15, I was somewhere thereabouts, almost 16. It's not about me, but this is impromptu. I told you that. Early in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation career, Backlund showed great promise, which came in fruition on February 20th, 1978. That's when he bested superstar Billy Graham and took the championship belt. The belt stayed in his possession for nearly 6 years. He lost it to the Iron Sheik, which we all know, that infamous night in Madison Square Garden on December of 1983. 6 years, and he defended more than once a month. Remember, house shows were around, although they don't even do them now anymore. They're just starting to bring them back. I remember at one time, and when I was still in the business, because my final in-ring physicality matches with my boys was 07, 08, I believe, somewhere thereabouts, and then I walked away right before some big chances because I had to finish out my career, had to take care of my children. That was the bread and butter. I mean, that's just the facts of it. And, you know, as I try to intertwine and put a face to the product and why you're here, because I'm an insider, I'm relevant, I don't deserve anything, but I earned it. Being around a lot of these guys, learning from the greats, being in the locker room, performing as a talent, so to speak, although an independent. I worked for the AWA. I worked for NWA territories. I worked for every group that you can think of all the way out to the West Coast. World Wrestling Zone. As I said, AWA Superstars. You know, I've been everywhere from Arizona to Vegas to Chicago to Indiana to Florida to the greater New England tri-state Northeast area. One of the few territories I missed during my career was the Deep South, and I didn't get out to the West Coast, but I guess Arizona and Vegas is close as you're going to get from me. Midwest was great. Of course, the Northeast and New England's a hotbed and has been for years, but that's another story for another time. Again, I felt like I wanted to put out a little more. People said, put out Chaos. Let people know more about you because you get emails and inboxes, and I really don't like to do this. So every couple of months or so, 6 months or so, I'll elaborate more on my connections as we're talking about Bob Backlund. Had a chance to work at least a handful of shows with Bob Backlund in the independents, everywhere from Assault Championship Wrestling to Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Then actually interviewed Backlund in ring in a live Chaos Corner segment at the Hercules Hernandez Memorial Tournament. Power and Glory, Roma and Hernandez, our head trainer, we hold the Hercules Hernandez Memorial Tournament at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling on all social media platforms. So there's the connection with Backlund and myself. I already talked about how he beat Billy Graham in February 20th, 1978 for the title and lost it at Madison Square Garden on December of 83. After losing the belt, Backlund wasn't seen much for the rest of the 1980s. He had a few matches here and there, but no real visibility. This is the weird thing about Backlund because he's a great guy, but a smart man. In 1992, however, he was back to action for the WWF with a vengeance. He made the transformation from a clean-cut, clean wrestler with a bow-tied heel. How about that? Going from the clean-cut guy to a bow-tied lunatic. Heel for Backlund. Who knew? I mean, it really was a big surprise if you knew the Backlund from the 70s into the early 80s. I mean, a total different character, and he went off the deep end, man. After losing the belt, he came back in 1992 to be the bow-tied heel, basing his character on everybody's worst memory of the high school teacher from hell. The fans loved the new Backlund, and he was on his way to stardom. He was already a star and a legend. He didn't need to do that, but that's how he pushed his career along. And people talk about the greatest heel to face turns. You talk about Hogan. You're talking about John Cena. I talk about Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko. A lot of people miss some things out there, and this is one of them to throw in that conversation. Bob Backlund. People looking at what The Rock does. Don't underestimate the past. You guys do that way too much in this community. You can't get to where you're going without knowing where you've been. You certainly won't get to where you are if you didn't know where you came from. It's all about respect, man. Gone before his time, Bruiser Brody. Controversial throughout his wrestling career, Bruiser Brody remained so in his up until his untimely death by being stabbed at the age of 42. Born Frank Donald Goodish on July 14th, 1946 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Brody joined the pro wrestling world in 1973. A tremendously popular hardcore brawler, the Bruiser stood 6'4" and weighed 284 pounds. Bruiser's main claim to fame was his willingness to give the crowds what they wanted in the blood and gore line. He bled so much that by the end of his career, his forehead was so scarred it looked like tripe. For 16 years, Brody wrestled. First as one of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation's monsters, where he had tried and failed to take the title from Bruno Sammartino, and second in World Class, where he began in the late 70s in the persona of nemesis to Fritz Von Erich. A decade later, he finished as tag team partner for Kerry Von Erich's sons. The Bruisers' running feuds, I guess that's what you would say, rivalries, were against the Spoiler, Ox Baker, Dick the Bruiser. He was truly popular and hugely popular with the fans and would probably still be wrestling today had he not had a run-in with a Bayamon, Puerto Rico, down in the islands. Local promoter and wrestler by the name of Jose Scumbag Gonzalez, a really despicable human being. I don't have to have met you. I know all about you. And I'm not judging. It'll come back to you. I'm just stating the facts. Because every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. So what did you do? Repent or not? Gonzalez was tried in circumstances. Let's just go back to there. Reigning in chaos. In circumstances that remain unclear, Gonzalez fatally stabbed Brody but claimed the injury was inflicted in self-defense. Gonzalez was tried for his murder and acquitted. showing perhaps the worst taste in the history of sport, never known for tastefulness. Gonzalez parlayed his notoriety from the stabbing into becoming the #1 heel in his wrestling organization, the WWC. Tragic story indeed. King Kong Bundy, little Chris Pallies from Atlantic City, New Jersey, was born on November 7th, 1957. He grew up to be the huge 6'4", 446-pound wrestler monster we all know as King Kong Bundy. He got his start in the wrestling business in 1976, working under the name of Chris Kanyon. It was only after he began working for Fritz Von Erich in Texas that he first started to make waves in the wrestling world as King Kong Bundy. Because remember, there was also King Kong Brody earlier. Remember that. He appeared in Richard Pryor's movie, Moving, and turned up on an episode of Married with Children. His face became famous well beyond the realm of wrestling fandom when he appeared in a computer commercial. The spot showed him in a wrestling ring, sitting at a desk and trying in vain to figure out how to use a competitor's computer. And you know my history with King Kong Bundy, for those who have been here for a while. We had a running feud all the way from Connecticut to Vegas to Arizona. Bundy and I loved the man. I believe he loved me. But it was a shoot incident between the two of us. And let's say I came up on the shorter end with a right fist to the jaw, to the eye, down like a sack of potatoes. And I'm proud of it. And then he stood on top of me. I couldn't breathe for like 3 days, or could barely catch a breath for 3 days. But I deserved it. And I took it. I called him a lard ass. Disrespectful. Thought I was joking around. I was with the boys, but what I didn't know is his wife was sitting behind us. He handled it great at first. Got to be careful what you say. Keep it between the boys. You never know who's around. And that's all he said to me as he called me into the locker room. Talk about being a little apprehensive. And remember where I come from. I don't get apprehensive. Anyway, we worked several shows all over, especially the Northeast, went out to the Midwest, went out to virtually the West Coast, like I said, Vegas, Arizona, conventions together, signings together, pictures for my family. There was always that little undertone. And when he got me in the AWA, bang, out on the Colorado River in the mountains of Laughlin and Bullhead City, going down Route 66 on the way back into Las Vegas. What a sight. It was worth the potato, man. And not being able to breathe. That's my connection with Chris, a great guy. And rest in peace, Bundy. But this is, again, what we're talking about here when we talk about flashy characters of the business from 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. Bundy left wrestling. Wait, where were we now? Fritz Von Erich in Texas, that he first made waves and became King Kong Bundy. His leap into the superstar status occurred when he was featured in the main event at WrestleMania 2 in a cage match against Hulk Hogan. Bundy was a force in the WWF. Bundy left wrestling behind for a while in the late 80s when he got bitten by the acting bug. He appeared in Richard Pryor's movie, as we said, Moving, and up on an episode of Married with Children, as we said. We talked about him being the competitor, looking at the competitor's computer in the commercial on TV. So again, I'm going through, because I interrupted, so I want to give you a synopsis. You guys know that. Here we go. In 1994, Bundy returned to wrestling for a brief time, wrestling in the WWF under the management of Ted the Million Dollar Man DiBiase, because every man has his price. Since then, however, Bundy has been working the independent circuit, where he often goes up against the equally huge Bam Bam Bigelow. Now remember, we're in the time machine here in Chaos Corner, well over 20 years ago. Star of stage, screen in a squared circle. El Santo. No me jodas, maricón, muévete, culo pendejo. What I say, man? Day nine. Kayfabe, lighten up, man, for my Spanish-speaking friends. The Saint. Rodolfo Guzman Huerta, later to become a famous in wrestling circles as El Santo the Saint, was born in Mexico in 1919, also called the Man in the Silver Mask. Huerta became Mexico's #1 most popular wrestler of all time. El Santo wasn't just the country's premier lucha libre wrestling star for the decades from the 1940s to the 1960s. He was also the #1 movie box office champ in Mexico. He made more than 60 movies in the 1960s and 1970s, playing superhero El Santo, often accompanied by his fellow masked wrestlers Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras. In the movies, he had all proper James Bond moves, fast car and sexy ladies. But instead of fighting spies, he kept the world safe by such otherworldly villains as Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, ow, and the Mummy. Perhaps most memorably, in one movie he even went straight to hell to take on Satan himself in the ring. And that's what we need, because it's a battle of good versus evil, and that's a shoe. And you know that if you're paying attention out there. After the 1970s, and with the end of his film career, El Santos went Vegas, Mexico style. Off-screen, El Santo gained fame as one of the first wrestlers to dive over the top rope to human torpedo his opponent on the arena floor. That's right, that's where it came from. His matches were always high-octane excitement, and the fans loved him. He put together an action nightclub act to perform in the clubs of Mexico City, a la Las Vegas of Mexico. He died on February 5th, 1984, after one such performance. Legend has it that he was buried with his mask on, like a cowboy with his boots on. Today, his legend lives on in the career of his son, El Hijo del Santo of El Mascarada de Plata. Pretty interesting. You've seen the Midnight Rider on here. That's the mask. Ric Flair was born in Minnesota on February 25th, 1949. A big man, 6'1", 245 pounds. It's not surprising that he played offensive guard on the football team at his college, the University of Minnesota, from that whole Minnesota area and all the stars. Do some research. Research is your friend on the greatest and most notorious and all the grapplers that have come out of that area. Once he came into wrestling, the wrestling fold, it was clear that he belonged. Flair's the original, the Nature Boy. He's not. Buddy Rogers is. A nickname originally belonging, here we go, as I've already said, to a 50s wrestler, Buddy Rogers, as he enters the ring with a strut that the original Nature Boy perfected. Flair is known to be cocky and arrogant, but then he's a 13-time NWA WCW World Champion and 2-time WWF champ, as he's got something to be cocky about. He's held a world title every year from 1981 to 1987. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let that marinate. Or marinade. How about that? And we know now, because we're in the time machine here, that it's 17 now, right? 16, 17 times for Flair. So keep that in perspective of where you are. Flair's feuds have been a long, memorable, including long-running battles with Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, Kerry Von Erich, Vader, and Hulk Hogan. Perhaps his most famous fan is former President George Bush. Don't get me started on that crumb. Don't get me started on all this, fans. Don't do it. Don't do it. Sometimes biggest is best. Depends on what woman you're talking to, I guess. But I'll keep it PG-13, man. I want to start talking about the size. Wrestlers. I'm talking about wrestlers. Sometimes biggest is best, as I said. The 7'4", 450-pound Andre the Giant. Oh, wait. The 7 foot... Hold on, fans. Hold on. Let me refocus here. Don't go anywhere. We're 40 minutes in. You never know when I'm just going to go off the air or it's going to shut me down. Who knows? Stay with me. Don't go anywhere yet. Come on, man. I'm the guardian of chaos. Sometimes things happen. The show becomes chaos. That's the part of the show. It's real. The 7 foot 4 inch, 450 pound was born Paul White. So let's go down that road. Now you guys know why I took a brief pause. A native of South Carolina, his physical resemblance to Andre the Giant is so strong that when he first came to WCW in 1995, it was said that he was from France and was Andre's son. Obviously, no, it's a bunch of horseshit. That early bit of legend inventing, storytelling, I guess you want to call it, right? Investing hasn't been mentioned in a few years now, but that was the early part of the legend investing of Paul White for the time. Remember where we are here in the time machine. However, so it can be assumed that it's been dropped from the big guy's bio. Again, I'm going to repeat this, and I'm getting the facts together to present it the right way, because you have to take it, make it your own, and present it with what you know. Just because it's in somebody else's book, or you read it online, or you heard it from someone, it doesn't mean that it's fucking real. Go out and do your own research, use your own discernment. Because, telephone, telecommunications, tell a wrestler. Tell the wrestling community. You get what I'm saying, right? I think, hello, McFly, is anybody home? Resemblances notwithstanding, the Giant is many ways a physically unprecedented wrestler. He is every bit as big and tall as Andre was, but he's almost 20 times more agile. The Giant has even been known to climb the top ropes so that he could dive down onto his opponent. He's the heaviest man in wrestling history to deliver a flying drop kick. The Giant has drifted in and out of the NWO and its various factions, never keeping with one alliance for very long. For a little while, part of his shtick, I said shtick, I know, was to enter the ring smoking a cigarette. Remember where we are. I hate to keep reminding you. We're in the time machine. While he announcers frantically warn the kids in the audience not to smoke while he's smoking because it would stunt their growth from the 7-foot giant. He's media friendly to just in a case he decides to contemplate a showbiz career, after his wrestling days are over. He recently appeared as a game show celebrity panelist on the Nickelodeon program Figure It Out. We know he went to be in the Water Boy as Captain Insano, and he went on to work in the front office of AEW and announcing, and the Big Show's gone out and done a lot. They totally misused him. But in WCW, green as a pepperhorn, I get it, but go back and look at the Giant Paul White when he was in WCW and what he accomplished in the ring. Raw. Green as grass. But man, oh sevens, they don't teach big men like that. One of the best ever for what he did, especially during that WCW era. That's just my opinion. The original blonde, bald, muscular World Wrestling Federation champion, superstar Billy Graham, is the prototype from which Hulk Hogan was ultimately to be built. Born September 10th, 1943 in Paradise Valley, Arizona, Graham was a teenage bodybuilding phenom, the physique that ultimately won him Mr. Teenage America contest was, by his own admission, created with steroids. Graham entered the world of professional wrestling in 1969, first for a variety of NWA promotions, as a tag team partner for such stars as Dr. Jerry Graham, billed as his brother, Pat Patterson, and Ox Baker. But it was when he made the move to the World Wrestling Federation in the 1970s that he really broke into superstar status. To me, mid to late 70s, into the early mid to late 80s, late 80s. Things started changing in the middle 90s, a decade there that was off the chain. WCW was lost in space. WWF had turned into cartoon land, and AWA was doing its thing, basically persona non grata, trying to struggle and move along on ESPN, and ECW wouldn't be here for a few years. So it took until you got into the advent of ECW, into the Attitude Era, into the Ruthless Aggression Era, and the Monday Night Wars before we had another area of solid good wrestling, but nothing like the 70s and the 80s and the decades I just mentioned in the time frames, and into the 90s, that era for a little while. But the last 20 years, to me, it's just not for me. It just isn't. Overall, the world has changed, people have changed, the business has changed, even looking like a wrestler and their attitudes has changed as I throw in my commentary on this. Because I don't deserve it. I fucking earned it. I already said that to you. So just sidebars here on Chaos Corner, here for storytelling. I hope you guys appreciate this. I love you guys, man. I mean that. Drop an elbow on that like button. Get involved. Say something on the replay or in the live premiere chat. Say hello to Austin. Say hello to the OTS Tribal Queen. Say hello to David T. or the Midmo Smark or Scripps or Big O. Midmo, I see them. Hooligram, I see them in the comments section. Hellfire Kai pops in now and then. It's a good thing to see the regulars. I'm off on a tangent here. We're talking about superstar Billy Graham. Again, the 70s when he moved to the WWF. Graham put asses in seats in the 70s, the mid to late 70s, even to the early 80s when they took the belt from him. He was incredible. After he lost the belt to Bob Backlund in 1978, Graham left the World Wrestling Federation to work the independent circuits. Never had a chance to be on the same show as Graham. But physical problems, particularly arthritis, severely cut his schedule short. Graham later learned that his physical problems were the result of his early abuse of steroids. And you see the current status of what happened with Billy Graham. Graham attempted a comeback in the World Wrestling Federation in 1987, but that was cut short. He carried on with his schedule of public appearances into the 90s, but his active wrestling days were now definitely over. He has since dropped from public view. Since leaving wrestling, Graham's had several operations on his damaged joints, that's an understatement, and enjoys painting at home. And as I said, Graham suffered, at least allegedly, for 20 years with a lot of health issues and from all kinds of abuse, and he blamed most of it. And that's why I'm going to bring the change back around and make it relevant. Most of it is from what we do to ourselves. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies, myself included. We fall short every day. That's why you have to try every day. I don't want to get into that, but Graham was a Christian as well. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure which year, but the superstar has rest in peace. Bret Hart was born on July 2nd, 1957. Also had a chance to meet Bret and hang out with him in the locker room on a couple of different events. On his first appearances back to the New York City area since the screw job up in Canada. So let that marinate. And that was for the when I was commissioner for the NAWA, still actively managing. This is definitely the middle to late 90s, later 90s. So I got to check my facts, man. Bret Hart was born July 2nd, 1957 in Calgary, Canada. He's no shrinking violet. His favorite self-description is, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Hart joined the WWF roster in 1985 and stayed with the Federation until 1997. His first manager was Jimmy Hart, who teamed him with Jim the Anvil Neidhart as the original Hart Foundation. And you guys know that yours truly, again, I have to throw this in there in the connection of why you're here, and just to let you know the history and storytelling. That's what it is. Worked with Hart, managed him, and also was against him. Faced with myself and Sex and Violence, we faced Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Jerry the King Lawler. I also teamed and was in the corner of Neidhart with Julio Fantastico Sanchez against Jake the Snake Roberts and Yokozuna. Man, we had a lot of good nights at the hotel, restaurants, and bars, man. Yoko, Jake, Neidhart. Nobody was doing anything abusive that I'm going to report. Partying, yeah. Okay. Going to be honest. I tell it like it is. You guys know that. But it's not like anybody was doing meth or ecstasy or shooting up or anything like that. I'm giving it to you raw dog right now. People drinking beers, whiskey, maybe taking some pain pills, or smoking a little ganja, a little rope, whatever you guys call it now. It's legal everywhere, but nobody got out of control and went out and drove or did anything dangerous or doing anything physical to anybody, especially women. You had your stories. There's an exception to every rule, but this was what the road was like. And remember, I never signed a contract. I was lucky to be booked almost just about 100 times a year, coming out 2 and 3 times a night on every show. Double shot weekends, triple shots. I had the bread and butter. I had a family. I had 2 kids. 2 beautiful daughters and one who was very sick. And one right now who's my next door neighbor. And my granddaughter. Life is good, but life is hard. So just to give you, I give you reality and real relatability and the show to the face to the show to show you that all this is this. Just an extended version. That's the difference in this show. Not better than anyone, just unique. No green screens, no music, no sponsors, no bells and whistles, no fucking editing. What you see is what you get. Oh, what you see is what you get. I said, well, what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get now, baby. We are the best thing yet. Did it, did it, did it, did it, did it. Ha! Get your go. No? Too much. Too soon? Is this too long? We're 50 minutes in, man. I got to get through this. I'm having fun, though. In the 1990s, we talked about the Hart Foundation, the relationship there, being able to be in both the company of Bret Hart and Anvil, in a natural social setting is just, I'm humbled, I'm blessed, I'm fortunate, and that's why I mention it. The 1990s saw Hart having great success as a singles wrestler. Over the first 7 years of the decade, he carried on memorable feuds with Shawn Michaels, Yokozuna, Jerry Lawler, Steve Austin, and his own brother Owen Hart. A contract dispute brought an end to his WWF affiliation in 1997. And he went over to WCW to join Hollywood Hogan in the New World Order. The whole Bischoff-McMahon contract thing. The screw job, the Montreal screw job, 97. That gives me the better gauge, obviously, of when we hooked up in 98 or 99. His first time back, documented. And he came to where our show was, along with the likes of my brothers John Diamond, Tony DeVito, Ralph Mosca, Primo Carnera III. The list goes on and on of the show that day. Throwing Danny Inferno, throwing a crowbar, throwing Sweet Genie, a.k.a. Sweet Destiny, a.k.a. Little Genie, Bobcat from Nashville, Tennessee, many other stars, the Backseat Boys, Trent Acid, Johnny Cashmere, the 80s Donnie B. I mean, duck go this stuff, and you'll find out what the fuck I'm talking about in history. And even Dances with Dudley and Big Dick Dudley. So just the different shows. Hillbilly, Cousin Luke, also on those shows. Yeah, what times, man. Again, taking over first as a talent, a manager, selling out the Westchester County Civic Center, so on and so forth, down there in Mount Vernon as well. Press conferences with the Sandman. A lot of it's here on the channel, but it just brings back the memories. That's where guys like Joey Styles, Taz, Dreamer, they all got a lot of their starts there as well and worked for these companies. And being able to take over commissioner for Bruno Sammartino in 1999. Wow. I might put that in my pipe and smoke it. So the whole thing with Bret Hart, Montreal Screwjob, just a brief synopsis of all these stars, because that's the chapter of more flashy characters. And for the time, remember, we're in the time machine. I'm repeating here. This Greenwich, Connecticut-born wrestler has one very impressive item in his pedigree. He originally trained under the legendary Killer Kowalski, who I happen to take that double axe handle from Kowalski in his older years up there in Boston. Rest in peace, Killer. You were one hell of a man. And I don't like to use that word in reference to you, but what a man, what a badass, what a legacy in Killer Kowalski, and it's here in Triple H as well. He originally trained under the legendary Killer Kowalski. He did a brief stint wrestling for the WCW as Jean-Paul Levesque. Levesque, you remember that? The Blue Bloods? But he was mostly worked for the WWF, because I got two words for you. I'm not going to say it. It's kind of immature. It wasn't back then, I get it. I was already in my middle 30s when you were saying, suck it. No offense, man. His character with McMahon's organization was something of an elite snob, but he's modified his persona somewhat and is now highly charismatic as a character. Remember when this was written? 1999, before the turn of the century, before Y2K. Can I say that on YouTube? Hemsley is probably best known for having taken over from an injured Shawn Michaels as leader of DX, the Generation X, where he was the popular Chyna, a woman's bodybuilding champ at his side. We all know that. Hello, McFly. His outlaw group is usually pitted against Rocky Maivia's Nation of Domination. Again, we're here in the time machine. Triple H is now married to Stephanie for years and runs the company for TKO and Nick Khan and Dana White, The Rock, the final boss, whoever the fuck he's running it for. The build to WrestleMania 41 this weekend hasn't been that great. Certainly not like last year. And again, nostalgia just ain't what it used to be. It's just crazy. And where Triple H has come in his career, right? Him and Michaels and all that little clique there. It's some funny stuff. X-Pac, all good guys. Got to work with X-Pac as well. So, Triple H, he's done well for himself. And that's why all you geeks and goons and neckbeards and virgins and mouth breezers and probably who haven't touched a pair of tits and haven't gone out and touched grass. No offense, man. Go out and get a woman. It's not directed at my watchers, my viewers, my subscribers. And if you're offended by it, look in the mirror. Because whatever I throw out comes back to me in judgment. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly, man. So don't get offended. You don't have to change the channel. And if you do, well, fuck it, man. I apologize for the cussing. Born Sylvester Ritter in Charlotte, North Carolina, JYD was one of the most popular wrestlers in the early 1980s, peaking during the Hulkamania years for the WWF, but that's a lie. Because Sylvester Ritter, a.k.a. the Junkyard Dog, was peaking in the UWF in the Mid-South with Bill Watts in the early and middle 80s and selling out the Superdome and putting asses in seats and making money for everybody who worked with him. And that's just a fact. Yeah, he went on and worked for the WWF. He did some work in the NWA, but Junkyard Dog, man, or WCW, that's what he was at his best work, and was fully into it before, he got off on track. Like everybody does. Some come back, some don't. But JYD was something. We had that old thumb game. Every dog needs a bone to chew on. No? Not my finest moment. I apologize for that. It was kind of embarrassing, but I was trying to imitate a dog. Sorry. JYD, let's focus, Chaos, Austin, rein me in, man. Before that, the 6'3", 305-pound wrestler proved wildly popular in the Mid-South Wrestling Alliance. Hello? You guys get it here. I'm a step ahead. Even back then, I was a step ahead, like I am today, in certain areas. I'm being humble. Where he carried on a running feud with the Fabulous Freebirds. One fan even pulled a gun on the Freebirds when JYD was blinded in the ring. Now, you remember that if you listen to good old Corny and Jim Cornette. And I know that you do. He was one of the first wrestlers to use theme music when coming to the ring and originated the chant, "Who dat? Who dat? Who dat think he can beat this dog?" The chant has since been taken over by the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is what I meant to say. Remember the time frame here, going back over 25 years. In the World Wrestling Federation, he became synonymous with Queen's song, "Another One Bites the Dust." Dun, dun, dun. Another one bites the dust, and another one gone, and another one gone. Another one bites the dust. Hey, we're going to get you too. Another one bites the dust. That's right here on Chaos Corner. With the GOC, man, that's me. His finishing mover was the Big Thump, a body slam. JYD was a featured wrestler in the early WrestleManias and on the WWF's first pay-per-view, the Wrestling Classic. JYD wrestled in the independents in the early 90s when personal problems kept him out of WCW and the WWF. And I reported this on my cable show back in 1998. Talk about OGs. I wasn't on YouTube and I wasn't on radio, but I've been doing this local cable thing and regional cable stuff, and I've had Chaos Corner and the Big Daddy Show since the middle 90s. I want everyone to think about that, to all the people now who have podcasts and shows and been doing YouTube, and they've all been on since, 2015, 2008, 27, 2022, 1998. I've been doing this since the middle 90s, just in different form. I'm just making it as a statement. I'm also older than everyone else, so that would make sense. Remember, I started off on FM radio when I was 16 doing my internship from WLNV 90.1. I was on there as a persona known as Sly Bubba Stone. That was my handle on my internship. From there, later on in years, probably 10 years later, because you get sidetracked, you finish up a high school, I headed on to college, got into a lot of different things, especially bouncing. Interpersonal communications, talking to people, viewing, watching, learning, listening. Life, you guys know that. So and then ended up getting a scholarship from 99.1 WPLR FM, partial scholarship where I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. That was my thing, man. I love this. You guys could tell I talk and talk and talk. Ain't no many people going to out-talk me, especially what I was doing in the 90s. You talk about the legendary manager talkers, Captain Lou Albano, Jim Cornette, Bobby Heenan, J.J. Dillon, Gary Hart, whoever you want to talk about, and the guys that I mentioned earlier. You talk about the wise man, Paul Heyman. You talk about the quintessential stud muffin, Joe Gertner, my brother. But it wasn't many doing it like this. The biggest, the baddest, the most notorious. Those were good days. I'm reminiscing. This is my memories, man. I'm reminiscing with you. As we talk about the JYD, again, a guy that I never worked with, but certainly saw him perform in person. And he wrestled the indies, and I always tell you about the independent pro wrestling. This shows you, if you do your history and research, it's the backbone of this fucking industry, of this business. Independent pro wrestling. It's all over in every town, city, state, country across the world. Here in the United States, Canada, Japan, Mexico. In your town. Do some research. Go to your local areas. Let me know who they are. Put them in the chat. I'd like to hear. Because here, it's Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. And someday I'm going to let you guys in and I'll give everybody the rub, because that's what I do. It's about putting others over. And I'm going to do all the areas around here, all the different companies and promotions that are within the greater New England tri-state Northeast area, and you'd be surprised. A lot of famous people have come out of this area, and a lot of young stars are coming. It's really unbelievable. A little different than what they do down south, smaller arenas, smaller schools, a little snugger style. You want asses and money and seats and money. That's why people come to New York. Not me. I'm not going to New York. I'm already in the shadows of Titan Towers. As we go over an hour here, I thought we'd be 35 minutes. So let's run with it. JYD, WCW, WWF, the Indies. He died in 1998 in an automobile accident going to see his daughter. I believe it was from Mississippi to Carolina, or maybe Carolina to Mississippi, because I reported live, as I said, and this is how we got here, in 1998 on my own cable talk show. It's not uncommon for a wrestler to work under different names, especially today's day and age as well, during his professional wrestling career, and that's what the territories were good for as well. Get over for 3 months, 6 months, and move on to the next place, make money. Territories were incredible. I had a small taste of it. But his fellow has... wait, hold on. It's not uncommon for a wrestler to work under different names during his professional wrestling career. But this fellow has had more names than Elizabeth Taylor. That was my point. I got a little tongue-tied here. You guys know you like it when I get tongue-tied. I know that you do. Rumble, stumble, mumble, fumble, bumble. He was born Glenn Jacobs in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he grew up to be one of the biggest men in the business today. 6'7" and 345 pounds. Kane began his career, if I'm correct here, somebody correct me, in the late 80s. I want to say 88, maybe 89. In the late 80s as Jim Powers. He then moved into Mid-South territory in the early 1990s, where he wrestled foe Jerry the King Lawler as Doomsday. He made his WWF appearance in 1993 as Black Knight's one-time only character who battled Jerry Lawler on his behalf in that year's Survivor Series pay-per-view. How many of you remember that? And I had to be reminded, because I know his history. 1993, obviously he wrestled in Smoky Mountain, as I said. He did a stint with Cornette down there, 95, where he was the Unabomber. And then, of course, everyone, this is when everybody really was introduced to him, when he came out as Dr. Isaac Yankem, Jerry Lawler's evil dentist who had rotted teeth. That was somebody, Isaac Yankem. Remember that shit? Most of you guys were probably, I don't know if you were barely teenagers back then, but I was already in my middle 30s and in the business at that time. So it's funny what perspectives and different generations where you see things from and what you've experienced, and then what you go on to learn, because I'm always learning, especially from a lot of you guys, and you're a lot younger than I am. Different perspectives, looking at things a little differently. I still have my own opinion that it's garbage, but I listen, man. Respect. And you know my saying about respect. Do I have to continue with this? In order to get respect, you have to start with respecting yourself. Once you do that, you open other people's minds to respecting you. In 1996, Jacobs took on his most successful and most famous role. I hope your notebooks are out. I know some of you, especially Jen, knows all of this as a historian herself. That's the year that he made his first appearance as Kane, the masked and theoretically horribly disfigured brother of The Undertaker. And we know what went on from there. And now he's in politics as the mayor in Tennessee somewhere. I actually worked several times and was able to manage and was against prime-time Brian Lee, also from Disciples of Apocalypse, Chains in the WWE. What is he known for? Being the fake second Undertaker in the WWF. Do you remember that angle where they had two Undertakers and he almost looked just like him? That was prime-time Brian Lee. We did a lot of traveling, me, him, and John Diamond, and we worked myself and Primo Carnera against Prime Time and John Diamond, Diamond from the Pittsburgh Steel team, ECW original, so on and so forth, at their training camps. So that's what you get here, and that's what I try to relay, is go off and give you some other stories along with what I'm trying to do here, which makes this show different, I hope. One of the all-time great wrestling villains, Ernie the Big Cat Ladd. Ladd was a black version of Killer Kowalski's in-ring persona. Now, I don't know why they would have to even say here over 25 years ago, why's it got to be the black Killer Kowalski? Why can't he be, he's similar to Killer Kowalski, whether he's white, Polish, immigrant, whatever the fuck he is. He's African-American, black. Why? Why can't it just be Ernie the Cat Ladd is similar to Killer Kowalski? I get it. A lot of people used to say things